Trump has created an expansive national security watch list that actually includes Americans, U.S. citizens, who have absolutely no connection to terrorism whatsoever. They have not done anything wrong. There's absolutely no cause to investigate them. But nonetheless, Trump has taken policy that was supported by previous administrations, including the Obama administration, and has expanded it to the point where he is not only abusing his power, but violating our civil liberties. So Newsweek broke this story. It's an excellent investigative report, and here's what they found. The new watch list, authorized through a classified attorney general order that launched in 2017, is expected to grow to well over 1 million names. It also allows the government to track and monitor Americans without a warrant, even when there's no evidence they're breaking the law. The authority circumvents criminal justice requirements for due process, equal protection under the law, and freedom of association under the Constitution. So the Trump administration broke the law, by the way, by not even announcing the watch list or the changes that they've made to previous policy to allow them to expand this watch list. The two laws, the Privacy Act of 1974 and the E-Government Act of 2002, require the federal government to notify the public of new and altered systems of records containing personal information on Americans and to assess its potential impact on civil liberties. Government officials familiar with the new watch list say it will eventually include tens of thousands of Americans, reaching more than 100 cities across the United States. I'm going to give you the origins of this watch list in just a moment, but understand that if you have the misfortune of being included on this list, your bank transactions will be monitored. Your travel could be hindered, and it could be a giant mess. So if you're, let's say, trying to travel outside of the country just to go on a trip for whatever reason, you are going to be pulled aside for extra screenings, extra investigation, and you won't even know why. You won't know why. You won't know that you're on this watch list, but the government will be tracking you, and they will be basically watching your every move.
So it's important to tell the whole story here. And so a huge part of the blame in this story goes to Barack Obama. Let me explain how the evolution of this thing happens so that you understand the full context. Police are always going to want more power. Why? Most of the time for legitimate reasons. So they say, look, there's a guy hanging out with the MS-13 gang in LA, and we don't have anything on him, but he looks to be connected. In fact, they're taking things to him as if they're taking orders from him. So can we start to investigate him? But you don't have any real evidence that he's involved in a crime. But the cops have a sense, in this example, that he's up to no good, so they want to be able to track him more. So if you let them, the cops, the authorities, the FBI, etc., would want as much ability to investigate as possible. And some of that would actually lead to legitimate investigations and stop real crime. The problem is, if you do that, it allows for invasion of privacy of everyone. So once you open the door, you do solve some problem, but you create a much larger problem. That's why the United States Constitution is so careful not to allow for that kind of invasion of privacy. That's why you need warrants. And they know that it makes law enforcement a little harder, but that's the trade-off that they're doing. So under Obama, the Justice Department, the FBI go to him and go, hey, look, we're tracking terrorists in this way. Already we're doing warrantless searches, but there are foreign citizens, etc. But look, isn't MS-13 and these gangs and the drug cartels just as dangerous as the terrorists, maybe more dangerous? And Obama, because he always wants to appease, and it's, I think, honestly in his nature, and same with Eric Holder, who was his attorney general, they willingly opened the door. And then once they opened the door and said, yes, you can begin to do warrantless searches of those people that are U.S. citizens that might or might not be connected to foreign criminal organizations, then Trump comes in and just breaks the door and says, okay, now if you're talking to anyone in a foreign country like El Salvador, then you might be a person of interest, even though we have no evidence against you. Boom, we're tracking you. We don't need a warrant. Then, if you know the guy who is talking to his family member in El Salvador, now we're going to track you. Oh, well, that's it. We just opened it up to almost all U.S. citizens through that expansion. So the door that Obama opened, Trump ran through, and right now, Trump, who claims, he's so concerned about government overreach and witch hunts and hoaxes and all these things, in reality and in secret, is doing the worst kind of spying on regular American citizens because of this.
Exactly. And this is why we need to hold all administrations accountable for abusing their power, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Because if you trust a Democratic administration, you should keep in mind that it's not always going to be a Democrat in office, right? So you could have someone like Donald Trump come in right after and expand this policy to something that's far more invasive and, of course, violates your civil liberties and your freedoms. And look, one of the things that Trump did, I'm going to go to the second to last graphic because this is the exact wording that we should be concerned about. It's this whole guilt by association issue. In May of 2019, Trump further signed an additional executive order that broadened the definition of a transnational criminal from a foreign person to a group of persons that includes one or more foreigners or one or more foreign persons. And so I say that because let's say that you are an American citizen, but you have family in El Salvador. Just by the nature of you having family in El Salvador, the Trump administration will argue, well, El Salvador, MS-13, we had reason to monitor this person, right? Or to spy on them. But there's absolutely no evidence or any indication that the person they're spying on, the U.S. citizen they're spying on, is involved in any type of crime or has anything to do with MS-13. And when you consider who Donald Trump is fundamentally as a person, someone who loves to retaliate against anyone for any tiny slight, you should be concerned, okay? If you're a journalist who just wants to do your job fairly and you might cover Trump in a negative light because he's a negative person who does negative things, he can totally retaliate against you by spying on you without talking to a judge, without obtaining any type of warrant. This is terrible.
So, but they will not do great investigations of this, and soon this will peter out, this story. And I'm going to explain why in a second. But first, I just want to be clear. We mentioned El Salvador, but it could be any country, and it could be someone, you could be ensnared in a way that you have no idea. There are criminal gangs that run out of Ireland, for example, right? So it could be that one of your relatives or someone that's in a group with you is talking to somebody in Ireland, and they might not even be in a criminal gang, but that's how they got into the list. But since you're in a group with that person, even though you don't even know who that guy is talking to in Ireland, all of a sudden they can investigate you without your knowledge at all, without a court order, without a warrant, and boom, they can get all your information. So, and if Trump wins a second term, good night, Irene. He's going to use this against any and all political opponents. The second expansion that they did, by the way, was not just this web that we just explained, but different categories. They said, well, there's cybercrime and there's stock market manipulation. So now, wait a minute, based on a random stock market trade, you're a person of suspicion or you're connected to a person of suspicion, etc. Oh, somebody did a so-called cybercrime, whatever the hell that is. Some are legitimate, some are things that the government just doesn't like. And the people that are connected to that, that's it, we're spying on all of them. So
one final thing about how this could really destroy your life. If, let's say, you're on this watch list and you apply for a job that requires an extensive background check, it will come up in the background check. And you can't do anything about it. You will not get that job. You will not know why you're on the watch list. You won't get any answers about it. And it's, it's the administration basically messing with your livelihood. This has far-ranging ramifications, and it could really destroy people's lives. And, just at the root of this is a giant civil liberties violation.
Yeah, and so why did I say that you likely won't hear much more about this? If you did it based on what the voters care about, this would be a giant story, because the right wing hates the government overreach. That's certainly what they say. They certainly say it in defending Donald Trump. The voters themselves. Democrats don't want warrantless wiretapping. We hate that when Bush did it, etc. But The Republican Party and Fox News ain't ever going to talk about it because this is Trump violating your privacy. And the Democratic Party ain't going to talk about it because Barack Obama started it. Now, he didn't do it expansively as Trump did, but he opened the door. So, and probably a lot of them okayed that, especially the Democratic leadership. So they're going to, even though it's a huge violation of our privacy and something they could use against Trump, they're like, nope, don't talk about it, because then we'll have blowback on us. And our careers, of course, are the most important. And honestly, the mainstream media, they're pretty much controlled by Democratic leadership. So if Nancy Pelosi doesn't make a big issue out of it, nobody on cable news is going to make a big issue out of it. And so, and if you're in cable news and you cry over that, oh my God, that sounds conspiratorial, Nancy Pelosi doesn't write memos. We know she doesn't write memos to you. But when Democrats don't make it a big issue, then you say it's not big news, right? Right? That's how it works. So that's why stuff like this, since both parties agree to totally screw us, gets dropped in the news cycle. And so you'll hear about it on this show and a couple of others, but mainstream media will bury this story.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.